Hei, sinä tātou katoa.
Could you run us through the changes that you've made in terms of these medical conferences that will now be able to be happening in New Zealand?
Yeah, basically we've had prohibitions on advertising new medicines if MedSafe hasn't approved them. That meant you couldn't run a medical conference because one of the main reasons for having a medical conference is to tell doctors about the new medicines and advertise them. We have got rid of the restriction on advertising new medicines, so there's good reasons for doctors to come to New Zealand and learn about them. Before we made this change, New Zealand doctors would go to places like Fiji for a medical conference, which is nice for them but bad for the New Zealand economy because the money's going over there.
Do you have clarity from Winston Peters on the changes New Zealand First is seeking to the regulatory standards? Your bill on regulation?
Look,
Regulatory standards bill? Yeah. Just a bit of a brain fade.
Yeah, that's okay. Look, I don't at this point, but I also decided I don't really want to get into, blow by blow of any negotiations that we're in.
Sure.
We're not really, but
It's more just he comes out here and he says it needs changes. It's not entirely obvious what the changes are. Do you have any? Do you yourself kind of know?
Well, the only thing I'd say is we did actually make changes in response to feedback from ministers before we introduced the bill. So, we know some that we've already made. For example, the bill initially required all legislation to be reviewed within 10 years. People said, that'll be too much work for the departments. We said, well, if it's too much work for the government to read all of its laws in 10 years, imagine the poor buggers who have to follow these laws out there. Anyway, we said, okay, we'll take the 10-year thing out, take pressure off that. That's the kind of change that we've already made, but hey. Sorry, Janae.
Question about the CCCFA. There's a bill before Select Committee to make a retrospective law change that will affect a case before the courts involving ASB and ANZ. ACT supported the bill to get to Select Committee. Will it continue supporting it, given it's making a retrospective law change, which is, unconventional?
Sorry, do you mind doing
this question? Well, it's fair to say that we're in discussions about that, Nate. Look, I've actually written to Scott in my capacity as a local MP, and I think that I'm very aware of the issue, but I don't know where it will get to at this point. Of course, I support the government's position.
What did you say to Scott?
I raised the concerns that you would expect people to raise. That this is an issue that you can understand. You don't want people getting ripped off by banks. On the other hand, you don't want the law to change. You want the law to apply from the time the action was taken, rather than be changed on you after the fact.
Sure. Would you feel a bit better if there was an exemption saying that yes, the law will be changed retrospectively, but active litigation will be carved out?
Well, I certainly think one of the objections that's been raised to us is you can't deliberately try and target somebody's legal action. That's a concern I've raised too.
One of the criticisms of the regulatory standards bill is that the extra steps could slow down the government's emergency management response. What do you think about that?
Well, the regulatory standards bill does have built into it exemptions for fast action in the case of needing to respond to an emergency. There's quite a few exemptions like that. For example, military orders are also exempt. If a government can genuinely hand on heart say that something is so urgent it needs to act now for the public interest, then it can skip the requirement to do a consistency accountability statement. So we have thought of that.
Are those exemptions in the bill as it stands?
Look, I can't quote the section, but it is in there now, yeah.
Can you give us an idea on what these medical conferences are going to look like and what they'll actually bring to the economy?
Yeah, you're going to see a whole lot of mainly doctors, but medical professions. You're going to see a whole lot of mainly doctors, but medical professionals interested in learning about new medicines and technologies, and they're going to join together in New Zealand, and it's going to just be a wonderful thing. It's the kind of activity we should want in this country. I've long said New Zealand should try to be the ancient Athens of the modern world, the centre of medical science and excellence.
And you've done sort of, you've not done, but you've allowed melatonin, you've allowed, off the top of my head, magic mushrooms,
well, we haven't actually allowed magic mushrooms,
sorry. But you've also allowed the flu medicines as well.
Yeah.
Are you hoping for sort of more liberalisation in terms of medicine? Are you hoping these conferences might bring that about?
Well, I hope that it will bring New Zealand closer to the forefront of good medicines and pharmaceuticals. I think we've fallen back from the forefront lately. Pharmaceutical companies have pulled out of New Zealand. The amount we spend on medicines is low compared with other countries, and if we want to be a really wealthy, developed, sophisticated country with a healthy population, we need to be at the forefront of these medical technologies.
Did you write to Scott Simpson on this CCCFA thing before or after ACT supported the bill through its first reading?
Oh, after, and I was very clear in my letter. I'm doing this because I'm a local MP. If someone comes to me, I've got to give them representation. I do respect that, in my capacity as a minister, I support the government position. But I just, since you asked, I said, yeah, I wrote a letter as an MP, and that's what it said.
So it's not a done deal. It's not been a done deal that ACT will support the bill through its next reading?
Well, ACT supports it because we're signed up as part of the government. But needless to say, I've indicated that I've raised some concerns, and who knows, maybe Scott may change his mind in response to that.
So you will support it through its next reading?
Well, we're committed to supporting government policy, but I think it's probably fair to say, I'm not the only one that people are saying, hang on, this isn't quite right. So, but that's up to Scott
Can you just
and the
say
cabinet.
why exactly you think it's not quite right?
Well, I don't think we should ever change the law retrospectively. The law that applies should be the law that was written down when you did the action. And second of all, I don't think that we should try and legislate to frustrate specific issues. Specific actions, sorry. Yeah.
Do you think you've persuaded fellow ministers not to break up the supermarkets?
Look, they've made no decision to do it yet, so I'm going pretty well. But let's see where that ends.
On the costs of the regulatory standards bill, you defended that, saying it's just a small proportion of the total spend from the government. If those estimated costs were actually much higher and there was kind of a minimum amount, what then?
So sorry, could you say that again? Like the costs, if it was not a minimum, or
if the costs are higher than that minimum amount that was estimated in the RAS, what then?
Well, I mean, how much higher and why would they be? I mean, I tell you what I think will actually happen is that by the time the bill's passed, you look at the pace of development of AI, the cost estimates were based on a human reading through every piece of legislation. I suspect that actually we'll be able to do it much faster than we expected.
Because of AI?
Well, I look at the way that it's being used in different workplaces, and I think that's a reality. I mean, I'll give you one example. My GP records all my conversations, hey Brooke, every day. Every time I go to visit her, that is. It's not every day. And, my GP is saving an hour and a half a day from recording conversations and getting notes summarised automatically. You think about the way it's changing the way people do research. You think about the way it's changing the way people apply for jobs. Could it change the way that a government department scans the legislation it's responsible for to pick out things that might be consistent or inconsistent with a set of principles? That's already here.
Do you think AI could be trusted in that respect, though? It's quite a significant thing.
Well,
I
don't think the issue is that you're going to trust it. I think the issue is that you're going to use it to speed up the work that humans are ultimately trusted for. Alrighty. Thank you very much, guys. Thank you.